Guys, welcome to the highest knowledge that must be taught prior to any other knowledge, Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 1. So just don't try to remember the names of various characters that will be mentioned. They are just related to your inner mind feelings, and later soon only two characters, Arjuna and Krishna, will be left in the whole of Gita. Many sources have even skipped the first chapters and have not even commented on them, like all these characters. So there's no need to worry. I will give you some ideas on what's going on. So Arjuna is in a condition where he has to fight a battle against the opponent side. So the Arjuna is basically represented as the good side. Although Arjuna has some flaws inside him, but he has more positive character and has a tendency to become fully positive. So that's why Krishna is on his side as his charioteer, to give him full Bhagavad Gita knowledge so that all his doubts are clear and he can fight the opposite side, which are basically our inner negative thoughts. Also, the opposite opponent side is the evil side, and Arjuna itself represents all humankind's mind. Arjuna, who is more of a positive nature but still has some negativity, which will be removed by Krishna, who represents pure consciousness or soul or last level, where everyone has to reach eventually, choosing either a positive or a negative path. So last, everyone goes through Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra is the father of opponent's team leader Duryodhana, who is the main character fighting against Arjuna. And interesting part is, Duryodhana is the cousin of Arjuna. Arjuna's father Pandu and Dhritarashtra are real brothers.
Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavah Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
Dhritarashtra said, "Assembled at Kurukshetra, at Dharmakshetra, and eager for combat, O Sanjay, what did my and Pandu's sons do?" Dhritarashtra is the very image of ignorance, and Sanjay is the embodiment of self-restraint. Ignorance lurks at the core of the objective, the outward-looking mind. With his mind enveloped in darkness, Dhritarashtra is blind since birth, but he sees and hears through Sanjay, the epitome of self-control. The aging king Dhritarashtra knows that God alone is real, but as long as his infatuation for his son Duryodhana, born from ignorance and usurper of the Pandav throne, endures, his inner eye will be focused on the forces of the Kaurav, who symbolize the ungodly forces of negative, sinful impulses, arrayed for battle against the Pandav forces, who symbolize the godly forces of righteous and virtuous impulses. Dharma is a field for combat. When there is abundance of divinity in the realm of the heart, the body is transmuted into a Dharmakshetra, or field of Dharma, but it degenerates into a Kurukshetra when it is infested with demoniacal powers. Kuru means do. The word is an imperative. As Krishna has said, driven by the three properties born out of Prakriti, or nature, man is compelled to act. Without action, he cannot even live for a moment. These properties, virtue, ignorance, and passion, or sattva, rajas, and tamas, compel him to act. Even in sleep, action does not cease, for it is the necessary sustenance for the body. The three properties bind men from the level of gods to that of the lowest creatures, such as worms. So long as the material world and its properties are, Kuru must be. Therefore, the sphere of birth and death, of that which is evolved from a previous source, or Prakriti, nature, is Kurukshetra, whereas the sphere of righteous impulses which guide the self to God, the highest spiritual reality, is Dharmakshetra. Archaeologists are engaged in research in Punjab, Kashi and Prayag to locate Kurukshetra. But the poet of the Gita has himself suggested, through Krishna, where the war of his sacred poem, the Mahabharata, was fought. This body is itself, O Arjun, a battlefield, and one who conquers it grows spiritually dexterous by perceiving its essence. Krishna then elaborates the structure of this, quote, battlefield, or sphere of action, as constituted of 10 perceptors, the objective and the subjective mind, ego, 5 elements, and the 3 properties. The body itself is a field, a ring, or an arena. The forces that clash on this field are twofold, the godly and the ungodly, the divine and the devilish, the offspring of Pandu and those of Dhritarashtra, the forces that are congenial to the essentially divine character of the self, and those which offend and demean it. The clue to the mystery of the conflict between the opposed impulses begins to be seen when one turns for enlightenment to an exalted or realized sage who has enriched himself with worship and meditation. This field belongs to one who realizes its essence, and the war fought on it is the only real war. History is crowded with wars of the world, but the victors in these wars have but sought in vain for a permanent conquest. These wars were nothing beyond acts of retribution. True victory lies in subduing matter and in perceiving, as well as becoming one with, the Supreme Spirit that transcends it. This is the only conquest in which there is no prospect of defeat. This is true salvation, after which there are no fetters of birth and death. The mind lying in the abyss of ignorance perceives through one who has mastered the mind and the senses, and thus knows what has transpired on the battlefield, where fighters include even those who have known its reality. Vision is ever in proportion to mastery of the mind and the senses.
So guys, Arjuna's team is referred to as the Pandava army and the opponent team as Kaurava or Kuru army, who were 100 brothers in counting. Arjuna is the most dear and favorite student of Guru Dronacharya, who is the teacher of both Pandava and Kaurava. And Arjuna has learned to be the best warrior of the world from his Guru. Arjuna was considered the best among all the fighters. Drishtadyumna, chief commander of Pandava's army, is the brother of Draupadi, who is the wife of Arjuna. The main reason for the fight between Pandavas and Kauravas was Draupadi's insult by Duryodhana. Duryodhana ordered his younger brother Dushasana to remove the clothes of Draupadi in front of the entire kingdom, but he was unsuccessful because of Krishna. As Draupadi asked for Krishna's help in the end after many unsuccessful attempts to take help from others present in the kingdom at that time. So nobody helped her, but just Krishna. Virata is the father-in-law of Abhimanyu, who is the son of Arjuna. Bhim is the second eldest of the Pandavas' brother, who killed all the 100 Kaurava brothers. So he is the powerhouse. Shabhya was the father-in-law of Maharaja Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira is the eldest of the Pandavas, thus who will become the emperor of the kingdom if Pandavas win the war. So in previous ages, whoever was the eldest was considered as the most, the most suited guy for becoming the emperor. Not only because of his age, but also because of the other characters he has, like the positivity and all the other things. So Subhadra is the second name of Abhimanyu. So he's also mentioned as Subhadra because he was the son of Subhadra. So basically Arjuna had 2 wives, so guys, don't be jealous. So that time has gone now. But, like at that time, like we just think of just sex and all those, like 2 wives, like. But the thing is that at that time, like you have to think beyond the body. You have to come out of your body stuff. So Subhadra is also Abhimanyu.
दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकम् व्यूढम् दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत्.
Sanjay said, "At the time, after having seen the Pandav army standing in battle array, King Duryodhana approached his teacher Dronacharya and spoke thus." Dual conduct itself is represented by the figure of Dronacharya, the great warrior and teacher of both the Kaurav and the Pandav. When the awareness dawns that we are alienated from God, there arises in the heart an acute hunger for the attainment of that exalted spirit. Only then do we set out to seek an accomplished teacher. Between the two opposite impulses, this awareness of our alienation and ignorance is the first initiator into wisdom, although the teacher of ultimate excellence will be Yogeshwar Krishna himself, an adept in yoga. King Duryodhana, an embodiment of excessive attachment to worldly objects, goes to his teacher. Attachment is at the root of all griefs, indeed their sovereign. It tempts one away from the spiritual treasure, and so it is named Duryodhana. Only the soul property is the stable property, and it is attachment which generates impurity in it. It draws one to the material world, but it also provides the primary motive for enlightenment. Inquisitiveness is possible only as long as there is attachment, or else only the impeccable spirit remains. So, after having seen the Pandav army arrayed, that is, after having glimpsed the righteous impulses that are in tune with the self, Duryodhana, a victim of attachment, goes to his teacher Dronacharya and says,
पश्यैताम् पाण्डुपुत्राणाम् आचार्यमहतीम् च मूम् व्यूढाम् द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येण धीमता.
Behold, O Master, this massive army of Pandu's sons marshaled in battle formation by your wise pupil, the son of Drupad, Drishtadyum. Drishtadyum, the son of Drupad, is the steadfast mind that treasures faith in the universal, immutable reality. He is thus the master, the type of righteous impulses that lead to selfless activity in a spirit of egoless reverence to spiritual divinity. As is said, not means, but the determination of mind needs to be firm. Let us now review the Pandav army at length.
अत्र शूरा महेश्वासा भीमार्जुनसमायुधि युयुधानो विराटश्च द्रुपदश्च महारथः.
Here in the army are many valiant archers, Yuyudhan, Virat, and the great martial commander Drupad, who are a worthy match for the brave Arjun and Bhim. And this army of Pandu's sons, the Pandav, is composed of those who can guide souls to the Supreme Spirit, like Bhim, who is an embodiment of resolute sentiment, the image of tender devotion, Arjun, and many other valiant warriors, such as Satyaki, endowed with goodness, Virat, and the great warrior leader Drupad, symbolizing consistency and steadfastness on the path of spirituality, and
धृष्टकेतुश्चेकितानः काशीराजश्च वीर्यवान् पुरुजित् कुन्तिभोजश्च शैब्यश्च नरपुङ्गवः.
Drishtaketu, Chekitan, and the mighty king of Kashi, as well as Purujit and Kuntiboj and Shaibya, the unparalleled among men, and Drishtaketu, the steadfast in duty, Chekitan, who can rein in his straying thought and concentrate it on the Supreme Spirit, the king of the holy city of Kashi, an emblem of the sacredness that resides within the world of the body, Purujit, the one who obtains victory over matter in all its forms, gross, subtle, and instrumental, Kuntiboj, who conquers worldly life by doing what is worthy of doing, then Shaibya, of virtuous conduct.
युधामन्युश्च विक्रान्तः उत्तमौजाश्च वीर्यवान् सौभद्रो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्व एव महारथाः.
The valorous Yudmanyu, the mighty Utmauj, Sobhadra, and Draupadi's 5 sons, all great warriors. The heroic Yudmanyu of warlike temper, Utmauj with the spirit of abandon that flows from sacred excellence, Abhimanyu, Sobhadra, the son of Arjun and Subhadra, with a mind without fear because it is propped up by righteousness, and the 5 sons of Draupadi, who herself is a form of discernment of the divine. All are great warriors, named tenderness, beauty, compassion, spiritual repose, and consistency. All of them are noted for their ability to traverse the path of spiritual fulfillment with perfect skill. Duryodhan thus enumerates to his teacher about a score of names from the side of the Pandav, which represent some vital principles of divine excellence. Although the monarch of impulses that are alien to the essentially spiritual character of the self, it is attachment that first motivates us to strive for the realization of the treasure of divinity. As for his own side, Duryodhan dwells on it but briefly. Had it been an actual external war, he would have given an elaborate account of his army. But only a few perversions are cited, for they have to be conquered, and they are destructible. There are mentioned only about 6 of these, at the heart of all of which there yet dwells an unworldly propensity.
Just letting you guys, don't just focus the characters as just by their names. So they are your inner positive and negative characters. Like I will explain like how come a person has a negative trait inside him and a positive. And I'm just giving you the main characters introduction, but later on there will be only 2 characters left. Like the main Gita is just Krishna and Arjuna. And the other thing is, if you want more detail, you can go through it later on. Like if you are more interested in this Bhagavad-Gita, later on you can go through these characters and watch Mahabharata and the other kind of shows related to it. But right as of now, I'll just give you the main character so that you are not lost. But they are like not too much important, so don't worry. So Arjuna's team is referred to as the Pandava army, and the opponent team as the Kaurava army that I already told you that were like 100 in number. So Bhishma was the grandfather of both Pandavas and Kauravas and was the chief in commander of the Kauravas army. So he was fighting on the Kaurava side instead of being the grandfather of both of them. And he was a boon that he has a boon that he can only die if he wishes to die, and was the most fearful warrior and the most difficult to kill. So he has a boon that was given to him, that if he wishes to die, only then he can die, you know. So it means like even if he's a lot of badly, like he's injured, so even if he doesn't wish to die, he will still live. He won't be, you know, just dead like that. So consider it the most inner negative thought of your mind. So try to compare it with your most inner negative trait of your mind, which is the most difficult to kill. For example, some people's greediness for money, you know, that might be their most difficult trait for them to kill. Like they are always greedy. And for some people, like they can't control their lust for sex. Like, you know, they are always looking for sex all the time, like just sex. Karn is the most suspicious character who was unrecognized, and he was helped in his most low point by Duryodhana. So he's the most suspicious and was a dear friend of Duryodhana and was fighting in his side. But suspense was that he turned out to be the eldest of the Pandavas, which he came to know just before the war. But still he was on the side of Kauravas because of his commitment. Even knowing that he was on the wrong side, he wasn't ready to switch sides. Even Krishna told him about his reality. So, you know, he was the eldest of the Pandavas, but still he was not ready to switch sides. Even, you know, he knows Duryodhana is wrong. So consider that that inner thought that you know is wrong, but still you can't remove it. So how to remove it? But it's not impossible. That's only possible by full knowledge of Bhagavad-Gita. Otherwise impossible, you know, because Karn didn't have Bhagavad-Gita knowledge as well. Ashwathama is the son of Guru Dronacharya, for whom his father was very attached and could die for him, although Dronacharya's favorite student was Arjuna and not his own son. He survives the war and is the only and is the one of the 7 warriors in Indian history who are considered immortals, along with Kripacharya, who is also the teacher of both the armies and brother-in-law of Guru Dronacharya, the main teacher of Pandavas and Kauravas. But Ashwathama has been cursed and is living a hellish life. So there are 7 immortals as per as Hindu Puranas. So Ashwathama and Kripacharya are among them. So Ashwathama is leading a cursed life. He's not like happy. He has like skin diseases and like a badly injured head. So he's still living, but he never died. He's still alive. And even Kripacharya. So Vikarna was the only Kaurava, like of the 100 brothers, who opposed the humiliation of Draupadi when it was going on. Draupadi, who is the wife of his cousins, like Pandavas. So he was the only guy who opposed it, like, you know, among all of the people in that kingdom. Even Guru Dronacharya, Bhisham Pitama, and everybody was like silent. They were like bounded by the rules, because everything was done by rules. So but Vikarna was having guts to, you know, oppose that. And one more interesting fact is, like, don't think of it like a body, but Draupadi was married to all 5 brothers together. Like, you know, there is a detailed reason for why that happened, because you guys only think about, you know, by only sex. So you have to come out of that thing, because, you know, I told you, beyond body is your mind, and beyond body is your brain, and beyond brain is your consciousness. Like, so that's why people just think about from their body. That's why they are confused. Like, Krishna has 16,000 wives, so they are stuck in the body, because you have to go in detail about Bhagavad-Gita. Don't focus on these other things. You will have the answers to all of them, but before that you have to know Bhagavad-Gita. Like that Bhagavad-Gita is before that you can't understand other stuff. So but that's why Bhagavad-Gita is more important, like before going through that. And Duryodhana was very concerned about Bhishma, as he was invincible and the chief and commander of his army, and was the main reason that could lead to him as his victory. So that's why he was more protected for him. Although he know that he was he's invincible and he can be dead only by his own wish, but still he was concerned. It shows that Duryodhana is confused that whether he can win or no. Even the other fact is that Duryodhana has taken Krishna's army on his own side. Like, that was a very huge army, and the Pandava's army was very small in number as compared to the Kaurava's army. But still Duryodhana had doubts. So it means he was on the wrong side. Maybe he is he's worried. Otherwise, he would be like 100% confident, like, this guy will only die when he wishes to die. So I have some other so strong warriors, and my army is like the quantity is like very big as compared to Pandava. So still he was worried, So that means he has doubt. So he wasn't 100% sure that he was on the good side of the army. So just continue with the audio.
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तान्निबोध द्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते.
Be it known to you, O the worthiest of the twice-born Brahmins, the names of those who are most eminent amongst us, the chiefs of our army. These I now name for your information. The, quote, worthiest of the twice-born, close quote. That is how Duryodhana addresses his teacher Dronacharya before he introduces to him the chiefs of his army. The worthiest of the twice-born would hardly be an appropriate term of address for a commander-in-chief if the war were a physical external war. In fact, the Gita dwells upon the conflict between contradictory innate impulses, upon the dual conduct which is Dronacharya. The world of matter exists, and there is duality if we are even in the least isolated from God. However, the urge also for overcoming this duality of object-spirit is also derived first from the teacher Dronacharya. It is imperfect knowledge that induces the hunger for enlightenment. It is now time to have a look at the leaders of the impulses which are hostile to the essentially sacred character of the self.
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च.
Your venerable self, Bhishma and Karn, and also Kripa, victor in wars, Ashwatthama and Vikarn, as well as Somduti, Purishrawa, son of Somdut. The commander-in-chief is Dronacharya himself, symbolizing dual conduct. And then there is the grandsire Bhishma, the very image of delusion. Delusion is the fountainhead of deviation from the ideal state. Since it survives until the very end, delusion is the grandsire. The whole army has perished, but Bhishma yet lives on. He lies unconscious on his bed of arrows and still continues to breathe. Like Bhishma also are Karn, a betrayer of the sacred character of self, and the conquering warrior Kripacharya. Kripacharya represents the act of compassion by the seeker in the state before self-realization. God is the mine of compassion, and the sage attains to the same state after fulfillment. But during the period up to accomplishment, so long as the worshipper is removed from God, and God is removed from him, when the uncongenial impulses are still alive and strong, and he is besieged by delusion, if the seeker feels compassion at this stage, he is destroyed. For acting with pity, in leaving her meditation hut and giving alms to the king of attachment disguised as a beggar, while her husband Rama was away, Sita had to undergo penance in the kingdom of Lanka for years. Vishvamitra fell from grace because he felt tenderness at this stage. Maharshi Patanjali, the preceptor of Yoga aphorism, has expressed a similar view when he says, "Attainments made through perfect meditation are indeed attainments, but they are also just as formidable obstacles in the way of the endeavor of the individual soul for identification with the Supreme Spirit as are sensual desire, anger, greed, and delusion." Goswami Tulsidas has said, "O Garud, manifold are the obstacles built up by Maya when we strive to unravel the knots of properties of nature, mere distortions of truth. Attainment of sanctity elevates, but the mind conjures up one temptation after another." The illusory Maya obstructs in many ways. It brings men accomplishments and untold wealth, and even turns them into holy beings. If a being of such accomplishment just passes by, even a dying man is revived. Notwithstanding the recovery of the patient, however, the seeker shall be destroyed if he regards the cure as his own achievement. Instead of one sickness, 1,000 maladies will swarm upon his mind. The process of reverent contemplation of the divine will be interrupted, and he will so stray from the right path that the world of matter overwhelms him. If the goal is distant and the seeker feels compassion, this one act alone is sufficient to result in the debacle of his whole army. So he has to be on his guard against the feeling of compassion until the moment of final attainment, although at the same time it is also true that compassion is the hallmark of a saint. But before ultimate fulfillment, this kind of compassion is the mightiest warrior among the evil, demoniacal impulses. It is thus that Ashwatthama is an image of inordinate attachment, Vikarn of indecision, and Burishrawa of perplexity and confusion. They are all chiefs of the outward flowing current of life.
अन्ये च बहवः शूराः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रः प्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः.
And there are many other skilled warriors also, equipped with numerous arms, who have forsaken hope of life for my sake. And many other valiant warriors are resolved, Duryodhana intimates to Dronacharya, to fight for his sake, even at the cost of their life. But there is no precise enumeration of them. Duryodhana then points out the innate qualities with which each of the two armies is fortified.
Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvidamete-sham balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Our army, defended by Bhishma, is unconquerable, while their army, defended by Bhim, is easy to vanquish. Duryodhana's army, quote, defended by Bhishma, is invincible, whereas the opposing army of the Pandav, defended by Bhim, is easy to conquer. The use of ambiguous puns in the Sanskrit text, such as paryaptam and aparyaptam, is itself a sign of Duryodhana's doubtful state of mind. So we have to look carefully at the power that Bhishma represents, on which all the Kaurav hopes rest, as well as the qualities symbolized by Bhim, which the Pandav, endowed with the treasure of divinity, rely upon. Duryodhana then gives his final estimate of the situation.
अयनेषु च सर्वेषु यथा भागमवस्थिताः भीष्ममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि.
So, while keeping to your respective stations in the several divisions, all of you should doubtlessly protect Bhishma alone on all sides. Duryodhana here commands all his chiefs to keep to their posts and yet protect Bhishma on all sides. The Kaurav cannot be defeated if Bhishma, delusion, is safe and alive. So it is obligatory for all the Kaurav chiefs to defend Bhishma rather than to fight with the Pandav. This is intriguing. After all, what kind of, quote, defender is this Bhishma who cannot even defend himself? What complicates the matter even more is that the Kaurav are also wholly dependent upon him. So they have to devise all possible measures of defense for him. This is certainly no physical warrior. Bhishma is delusion itself. So long as delusion is alive, unrighteous impulses cannot be vanquished. The word invincible here means difficult to vanquish rather than impossible to vanquish. As Goswami Tulsidas has said, the most difficult to conquer is the hostile world of matter, and the one who subdues it is indeed heroic. If delusion ceases, ignorance also ceases to exist, and the residues of negative feelings, such as excessive attachment, hasten to a quick demise. Bhishma is blessed with death by wish. So the death of desire and death of delusion are one and the same. This idea has been so lucidly expressed by Sant Kabir as follows. Since desire is the maker of birth and illusion, and it is desire that creates the material world, he who abandons desire is the one who cannot be conquered. That which is free from delusion is eternal and unmanifest. Desire is illusion and the progenitor of the world. In Kabir's view, as he puts it, the self which achieves freedom from desire is united with the fathomless, eternal, boundless reality. One who is free from desire dwells within the self and never falls from grace, for he has his being in the Supreme Spirit. At the beginning, there are numerous desires, but eventually there remains only a longing for the realization of God. The fulfillment, too, of this wish also marks the end of desire. Had there been something higher, greater, or more precious than God, one would surely have craved for it. But when there is nothing beyond or above him, what else can be desired? When all things that can be had are achieved, the very roots of desire are destroyed and delusion perishes utterly. This is Bhishma's death by wish. Thus, defended by Bhishma, Duryodhana's army is invincible in every respect. Ignorance is present as long as there is delusion. When delusion is dead, ignorance also dies. The Pandav army, on the contrary, defended as it is by beam, is easy to conquer. Beam is the very image of sentiment. God dwells in feeling. Krishna has described it as devotion. It lays hold on even God. The sentiment of devotion is a pious impulse of flawless perfection. It is a protector of righteousness. On the one hand, so resourceful that it brings about realization of the Supreme Spirit. On the other hand, it is also so delicate and fragile that this day's fidelity and adherence often turn into nothingness and even outright privation on the next day. Today we admire a sage for his virtue, but the very next day we grumble and cavil because we have seen him relishing delicacies. Devotion is shaken by suspicion of even the slightest flaw in the loved one. the impulse of righteousness is undermined and the ties with the object of affectionate devotion are broken. So it is that the Pandav army defended by Bhima can be conquered with ease. Maharshi Patanjali has given expression to a similar view in the following phrase: "Only meditation practiced for a long time with constant devotion and reverence can be firm." Now let us listen to the flourish of the warrior's conches.
तस्य संजनयन् हर्षम् कुरु वृद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादम् विनद्योच्चैः शङ्खम् दध्मौ प्रतापवान्.
To Duryodhana's delight then, his mighty grandsire and the eldest of the Kaurav, Bhishma, blew his conch to blare forth a lion-like roar. Conches are blown after the Kaurav have taken stock of their strength. The trumpeting of conches is a declaration of the intention of each of the chiefs of what he can offer after conquest. The mighty grandsire Bhishma, the eldest of the Kaurav, blows his conch to produce a lion-like roar which gladdens Duryodhana's heart. The lion represents the terrible tooth and claw aspect of nature. Our hair stands on end and our hearts beat violently when we hear the roar of a lion in a still, solitary forest, even though we are miles away from the beast. Fear is a property of nature, not of God. Bhishma is the very image of delusion. If delusion prevails, it will enwrap the material world's forest of fear which we inhabit in yet another shroud of fear, to make the existing dread even more frightening. Delusion cannot offer anything else except this. So renunciation of the material world is the right step for one who quests for self-realization. Worldly inclinations are like a mirage, a mere shadow of ignorance, and the Kaurav have nothing to declare against this. Numerous conches from their side are trumpeted simultaneously, but they altogether inspire no other feeling except fear. Fear, although in varying degrees, is born out of each perversion. Similar is also the message of the conches of the other Kaurav chiefs.
ततः शङ्खाश्च भैर्यश्च पणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तु मुलोऽभवत्.
Then there abruptly arose a tumult of conches and kettle drums, tabors, drums, and cow horns. After Bhishma's blowing of his conch, numerous other conches, drums, and trumpets are sounded together, and they make an awesome noise. The Kaurav have no message other than that of fear. Intoxicated with a sense of false success, the outward-looking impulses that offend and demean the human soul render the bonds of infatuation yet stronger. Now the Pandav, representing righteous impulses that are in harmony with the divine character of the self, respond to the Kaurav challenge with their own declarations, the first of which is made by Yogeshwar Krishna himself.